Hello, good morning, my name is Garrett Brilland and I'm at Altham Cornmill, and this site is a medieval site, dates back to 1165 when there was a church further up at the ancient crossing. The medieval Cornmill must have been water powered because the river Calder runs around this way, and there was water was diverted into the mill, so this stood for quite a few centuries and then probably got into ruin and disrepair and misuse. And then we find Robert Peel here in 1770. It was calico printing in this area all around Accrington, Hyndburn and Church and Oswald, and him and his son William Peel were calico printing, so they had the power, the water power from the river to power the looms. There's quite a lot of looms here, and it was a big industry for Robert Peel. There's also sewerage works at the back because they needed the sewerage in the calico printing trade to stop the dye running in the cloth. So this is quite a historic site, but later the site was, the mills were pulled down and rioted in 1779 by the Jacobites. Hello, I'm at Altham Cornmill, and this is the site where William Peel came and his dad Robert Peel. He was a grandfather of the Prime Minister Robert Peel, and they lived at Peel Fold at Oswald. They did calico printing in this area. The mills were rioted and had to be rebuilt in 1816. In 1816 we have an E.Topham of the manager at the time. Of the corn mill was paid by the toll that he was charging on these roads, and so he made some money out of that. That was in the early 19th century, and the miller was called Eli Pickles, and later it was run in 1854 by a miller called Christopher Lawson. He was the mill at the time. So these stand, they are about 200 years old, these buildings here now, but it's a great historical site that you can see now. As well as Rob Cornmill here, there's also an ice works, a room that had ice for storing food, and just down the back it's still in its original state, underground ice works as well as coin and calico printing. So there's a lot of history in this site, basically because of the area where they preached from the church, and when it was destroyed, a lot of the machinery went into the river, and the grinding stones were actually found in the river and kept in storage at the Occult Park Museum. I think now it's Hyndburn Heritage, so it could be in one of their cellars somewhere, but that was the original stones for the corn mill. This is the site of a calico printing mill. The inscription behind on the wall is E.Topham 1861, and he was the manager that carried on from the Peels, because the Peels had to leave the mill behind that they built in 1770 by rioting in 1779. So there must have been some ruins here left, maybe, because it's a fine example of a Lancashire calico printing mill. On this other side there was an ice works, and still is now, surviving underground like a cellar, and they must have kept fish there or meat to preserve the food in the ice. And also further up there was a smoking house where they smoked the fish. but these cottages and this site is a prime example of Lancashire's industry at the time. So I'd just like to thank the residents of this site for giving me permission to do this video.